that's a fairly broadly accepted um, concept for an end solution as a two-state solution. I think in Israel it certainly seems to be pretty much
Well,
the
unless you're a cabinet member, they seem to be the only minority group in this country, the government, that doesn't see not the beauty but the necessity of this. And yeah, they pay the lip service about the two-state solution, and they've turned this upside down by saying, well, if you endorse the two-state solution, you must be extremely, if not excessively, sympathetic to the Palestinians. Well, I'm not sympathetic to the Palestinians. It's not about sympathy. It's about choices that need to be made. Every time you hear, I mean, an American president or an American Secretary of State, most recently Hillary Clinton, saying the status quo is unsustainable, and it looks like a bumper sticker. It looks like something they say. It almost became a platitude. But it's true. The status quo is unsustainable, and the fact that tomorrow we'll all wake up and have a great breakfast and go for a jog and go to work and enjoy ourselves, and the sun is going to shine, doesn't mean that the status quo is okay. The status quo is not okay, because we are living in some kind of collective, very convenient denial. It's as if we're all in line for the buffet on the Titanic. We know where the iceberg is. We know that the ship is being captained by people who can see the iceberg, yet do nothing to steer us away. Now, is it dangerous to steer away? Yeah, but it's even more dangerous to bang into the iceberg, which is what we're doing right now.
how does Hamas complicate that? Because I mean, this is the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority concluded some sort of agreement, and the status of that is yeah, day to day basically. They either hate each other or they hate each other's and less enough to work together, that sort of thing. But of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization, and obviously you don't do peace talks with your friends. You do peace talks with your enemies. But I mean, Hamas at this stage, doesn't that really kind of throw it back to square one in terms of
Yeah,
a
it
Hamas
does.
government really makes it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And Hamas represents something which is not only reprehensible, but something which is politically more dangerous. I mean, they're morally reprehensible, but politically, it is dangerous because the stronger Hamas gets, the stronger the indication or the expression or the manifestation is of the Palestinian National Liberation Movement being taken or being hijacked or being conquered, or overtaken rather, by a radical religious group rather than a secular nationalistic group. Now, the PLO, for all its faults, and I'm not going to be an advocate or a defense attorney for the PLO, but the PLO was something we could have dealt with, and we did. It did not always turn out to be as great as we thought it would be, unfortunately, but that's a fact of life. Hamas represents something that Israel could probably not coexist with. If Hamas controlled the Palestinian state, a future Palestinian state, for the sake of conversation, the one that will be established as a result of negotiations with the Palestinian Authority, and let's say in 5 years' time there is another set of elections and Hamas win. It doesn't matter if the platform was about jobs and health care and school prayers. It doesn't matter what the agenda was. But Hamas represents something much deeper, much more civilizational. Not because they're Muslims, but because of the brand or the strain or the form, the radical form of Islam that they represent. That would be a problem. But if we want to make sure that Hamas win the next elections, all we have to do is what we're doing now, and that is nothing. We have to make sure that the Palestinians have something to live for. We need to convince them that they have a tomorrow as well, for our benefits, not for their benefits. And the only way to do that is through economic development that doesn't precede and does not substitute, but accompanies or complements political or the fulfillment of political aspirations. That's the only way that the secular when I say secular, I don't mean in the anti-religious sense.
Right.
But that's the only way that the secular, modern, the Salam Fayyad, the Palestinian prime minister, a form of Palestinian leadership takes over Hamas. Because I don't see a reason why the people in Gaza would not vote for the Palestinian or for the PLO rather than Hamas if they could see some kind of improvement and some kind of future. You have to be sympathetic on a humanitarian level, on a moral level, to a Palestinian, not the Palestinians, but a Palestinian who, for whatever reasons, his leadership failed him, corruption failed him, Israeli occupation failed, whatever.
Right.
He is fourth generation refugee. Now, yeah, we could blame the Egyptians and the Syrians and the Saudis and the Kuwaitis for giving, not giving a shit, excuse me for the expression, about the Palestinians, and it's true. Except for one thing, they live in my backyard, and it's a very, very small backyard, i.e. they're kind of walking into my kitchen, and then the den, and then the bedroom, and before you know it, you have a family of 4.5 million living in your house. And so a Palestinian, in order for him or her not to vote for Hamas, needs an incentive. He needs a tomorrow to think about. He needs to know that his son or his daughter can make it into college, can get a job. Right now in Gaza, that is not the case, and we're paying, or we're going to have to bear the consequences and pay the price.
Related to the so-called Arab Spring, heard a couple of things about the Arab Spring, and maybe this also reflects on what the situation is in Gaza or what it might be in Gaza down the road. A lot of optimism about the Arab Spring last night. Bernard-Henri Levy said that he's very optimistic about it in the long term and not too worried about the short-term consequences. I believe President Perez said something similar to that. This morning, Neil Ferguson got up and said, Niall Ferguson, thank you. Niall Ferguson, thank you. Got up this morning and said, "Man, are you guys all wrong? This is a potentially really bad situation. There's going to be a whole lot of tumult there," and he called himself an optimist, which I forget how he put it, but basically a pessimist who at least hopes that things are going to turn out well in the end. What do you think? First off, what do you think? Which direction are you going in terms of what the Arab Spring is like? And then, do you see something like that happening in Gaza for just the reasons that you laid out?
Well, yeah, you got to divide this into different layers of analysis or different angles. Is it good or bad? I don't know yet. I mean, I can only evoke the Mao Zedong adage about what do you think of the French Revolution? Well, it's only been 2 years, too soon to tell. It really could go either way, okay, in terms of the immediate strategic implications. So thinking from a realpolitik point of view, as a realist, which I'd like to think that I am, rather than an idealist, it contains the seeds of potential problems. And at the same time, there's a lot of hope, but that's not saying much. A different angle would be, none of these regimes deserve to be there. These were revolutions, well, kind of revolutions. They were not revolutions, and it's not yet an Arab Spring, but it was positive. Because we, for years, have been saying, we being not just Israelis, we in the West, we liberal Democrats, not in the American political context, but liberal Democrats in the general political and cultural dimension, we've been saying, how could you ever negotiate seriously and coexist with people who are undemocratic or patently undemocratic? And everyone uses Immanuel Kant, who said, never in the history of mankind did two democracies fight each other, two republican governments. And I'd like to think that the issues for which people in Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Bahrain, and Syria are going out and physically putting themselves in harm's way are noble causes. And I cannot, for the life of me, see how anyone could warn against the implications of what's going on. The implications don't matter. People want respect, they want dignity, they want jobs, they want a future. I find it hard to believe that anything significantly bad can emerge from this in the long term. Short term, I agree with Bernard-Henri Lévy. You know, this could go either way. There is, you know, if history teaches us something, the history of revolution teaches us something, it is that revolutions are usually hijacked in midair. I mean, they start off one way. Just look at the French Revolution. Look at the English Revolution, the English Civil War, which was a revolution. Look at the French Revolution, and of course the Chinese, and even more notably the Bolshevik Revolution. They all started great, and they all ended up in some form of a reign of terror. In the long run, it changed. Is there a clear analogy between Syria and the Bolshevik Revolution, Egypt and the French Revolution? No. My point here being, I, as an Israeli, have to be optimistic, because nothing good, I mean, there are two cliches which I think are just intolerable. One is, better the devil you know. Well, truth is, it's not better. Because the devil I knew is Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and Arafat, and Assad, both father and son. So what was so great about the devil we know? The second thing is stability. These people, well, fact is, they were not stable.
Right.
They were not stable,
Yep.
and there were no guarantees for that stability. And even if you can make a compelling case on why Egypt under Mubarak and Syria under Assad and Jordan under Abdallah, which is not threatened yet, and any other countries, Ben Ikhya in Yemen, Ben Salah in Yemen, that they were stable, my question to you would be, how does that stability benefit me? It doesn't. I mean, on the same token, it was great that the Soviet Union existed, because the world was orderly, it was stable, there was mutually assured destruction. You did not see the things that you see now in the world. You know, you had an address, it was the Kremlin, and that was that. I think that as an Israeli living in this neighborhood, which I, again, will refer to as lousy, if I had to make a prediction, a guesstimate of sorts, I think that while short of calling it an Arab Spring, we could, because it is not, and short of assuming wrongly and deluding myself into thinking that there's a Thomas Jefferson out there in Syria and Yemen and Tunisia, he ain't there.
Right.
But if I had to make a guesstimate, is this good for Israel, bad for Israel, or inconsequential for Israel? I'd say in the long run, and by long run in this region, we're looking at months, maybe a few short years. I think it's good.
Alon Pinkas, thank you very much for sitting down with me today. It's been a
My
pleasure speaking
pleasure.
with you.
Thank you.